So I'm incredibly excited about today's show. We're going to be deviating a little bit from the normal format for today's show. And this is an episode I've been wanting to have for a while now. More and more in society these days, you hear the term mutual aid getting thrown about. And it's something that I myself am familiar with. I'm a little bit familiar with. I mean, I know that it's something that exists, but I certainly don't know all the details about it. But in our contemporary day and age, we're living in an era where all the veils have been taken off what our society really is here in the United States. The corporate coup that is our government, the banana republic that is our government, and just how brutal it really is to we the people. And folks are looking for a real solution, and people are more and more interested in this idea of mutual aid and kind of creating systems that are outside of general governed society. But what does that mean really? And what are the ins and outs of that? What does that work really involve? And I've been looking for someone to talk about mutual aid for a little while now. I tweeted it out, and this gentleman was recommended to me, and we started a conversation. And I'm incredibly excited to learn from him today. So please welcome to the show, Red. He is with the Community Relief Corps up in North Seattle. Red, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Hey, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. So let's just start at the most basic. You heard my preamble there. So what really is? How would you kind of just explain to an outsider what is mutual aid exactly? What is it all about? What does it involve?
Mutual aid is the self-guided development of a community's economy, essentially. Mutual aid is neighbors helping neighbors. And we often explain mutual aid in contrast to charity. Whereas charity is money that comes from someone that's usually rich or a slightly better status than you. Mutual aid is a horizontal act. Mutual aid comes from neighbors to neighbors. It comes from the struggling to the struggling. You hear people make jokes about how poor people on the internet send the same $20 to each other back and forth. That's mutual aid. That's a joke about mutual aid. That's what poor people do. And it's often you talk to service workers or you talk to houseless people, and they'll tell you that working class people are the ones that give them their last $5. It's not rich people that give them their last $100. It's the server who just got off work and they split their tips with their fellow workers, and they're walking by and they see you and they give you a 5 or a 10 or a 15 or a 20 right off their stack. No questions asked. They don't ask what you're going to use it for. They don't care. And that's mutual aid. Mutual aid is just the community living for itself. They're not living for the corporate master. They're not living for the president. They're not living for the mayor. They're not living for the chief of police. They're living for themselves. They are self-directing their lives around what matters to them, which is usually filling their bellies, strengthening their bones, and educating themselves. And that's what people really care about. I tell people a lot that nobody wants to talk about policy on an empty stomach. And so that's what mutual aid is all about. Mutual aid is about getting us all fed, getting our bones strong, and getting our minds sharpened so that we can come into a civil sort of place and be copacetic with each other, to be good with each other and be kind to each other. And that's what the base hope is, right? Is you just want to live next to each other in peace.
Have you ever read Paulo Freire? Yeah.
Oh yes, extensively, yes.
Because that's pedagogy of the oppressed. Just really, if you had to just sum that book, which that's one of my favorite books. I love that book. It's a beautiful book. But yes. If you had to sum it up in one sentence, it's basically just, you can't learn if you're hungry.
That's right.
It's impossible. That's just
correct.
Can't do it.
Yeah, you have to put first things first.
Mm-hmm.
You have to.
I would say, responding to what you said, I would say that it goes a little bit beyond living for yourself, though, because it also sounds like you're living for each other too.
Well, no, that's a community living for itself.
Mm-hmm.
Not individuals living for themselves, but a community self-directed for itself. And so we often find that our communities are serving two different causes. They're serving the people that exploit us, and they're serving ourselves. And so everything that's left over after our exploiters, we split up and share. And that's mutual aid. But the goal is to get away from that. The goal is through dialogue and service and humility and compassion for each other and with each other, and building this mutual dignity, that we can unite around what really matters to us, our mutual survival, our mutual satisfaction, our mutual dignity. These are the things that really matter to people. And we can't really move forward effectively if we're all hungry, tired, stressed out, overworked, overexploited, undercounted, underheard. All these things matter. People, and so it's mutual aid is the act of self-development of a community, not of people. It is the act of developed people initially. People that are politically and socially developed, they get it started. But ultimately, the act of capital M, mutual, capital A, aid, is a self-directed people's economy, essentially, that takes care of themselves first.
I love that phrase, people's economy. That's that's right on. So describe some of the work that your group specifically does in the community. What does the Community Relief Corps do in North Seattle?
Okay, well, the Community Relief Corps came out of a public health effort that we were building for years here, a public health and safety effort, grassroots, of course, just a bunch of neighbors working with neighbors. And then when, of course, the pandemic hit, it was just an easy pivot for us from general public health to COVID public health. And so we started this Community Relief Corps because what we noticed in our community was that the nonprofits in the city, when they should have been tripling services, they were cutting them by 66%. Instead of tripling services so that we could get everybody into a service, they instead reflexively chose to punish the poor first, instead of choosing to extend their hand to the poor, to those in poverty. And we noticed that immediately. And so we formed the Community Relief Corps immediately. In like the first week of the pandemic, we realized that the state was going to abandon us. We called it. We said, this is going to be at least an 18-month problem. This is not going to be something that's done in 3 months or 6 months. We knew, because we've been fighting the state for a long, long time. And I say fighting the state, and I mean it. I meant that. They don't like us, and we don't like them. But and we knew they were going to fail. Well, look around you. That's the answer. Look outside your door.
Mm-hmm.
Look out. That's why. Look outside your door. No explanation needed. That's why we don't like the state. That's why we don't like the bourgeois state. That's why we don't like the US state. And don't just look outside your door, but look outside your door to Mexico, to El Salvador, to Iraq and Afghanistan and Vietnam and Laos.
Mm-hmm.
Look outside your door. That's why we don't like the American state. Anyway, we're not talking about the American state here. What we're talking about is the flop of the American state. And not just the flop of the American state, but the intentional, once they realized that they could save themselves, they left us in the wind. And we knew that was going to happen. We knew that was going to happen because we're students of history. And we've been at this for a while. And so we said, this is going to take 18 months at least. And so we need to get out here immediately and start doing something. We knew that food services were going to get restricted. We knew the shelter services were going to get restricted. And so we focused our efforts on reinforcing people's access to makeshift shelter, even if it's not a house, because we don't have the power to do that, and we might not for a long time, to give them homes. We said we can at least give them tents. We can't solve their hunger problems, but at least we can solve their hunger crisis on a daily basis. And so we started doing sandwiches and snack packs, and it just grew from there. It just grew and grew and grew. The need grew, but as the need grew, our support grew with it, as we developed our support. And it's been 6 months now, and we haven't missed a single service day. We serve 100, well, right now we serve 150 meals a day. We went from 30 to 40 to 50 meals served in a day in 1 month. We're about to go up to 70 meals a day, I believe. And so the Community Relief Corps right now, We run a immediate need, no questions asked, no barrier tent, tarp, and sleeping bag service. You can just basically see us on the street and be like, I need a sleeping bag, tent, or tarp, and we will get one to you. Someone will drive one to where you're at. Um, we run a water table, which has already put out about 4,000 bottles of water this summer. We have about 2,500 left to distribute. We consistently deliver whole cases of water to two houseless encampments in our neighborhood. And so before I get any further, the CRC is a specific formation designed for our neighborhood specifically. We didn't design it to operate in the whole of Seattle. We designed it to operate in an 8 square block area in Lake City to serve the same people every single day. Our goal is not to spread ourselves thin, but to get deeper and deeper and deeper and serve and better serve the same people every day. So that's sort of the boundaries of it all. And that's why you might say, oh, that's only 50 sandwiches. It's only 50 snack packs. It's only 50 meals, but it's 50 people, the same 50 people every day, week after week, month after month, in a consistent act of justice, and not just random acts of kindness when we see people, but followed through consistent acts of justice, getting someone a tent, getting these 50 people tents, and then making sure they keep a tent forever. So they never have to go take a tent from someone else or steal a tent or ask for a tent. They can simply have a tent. If they need one, they can simply have one. No barriers, no money. We don't ask for $1 from these folks. We don't ask for anything. No pictures, no nothing. We don't know signed statements, none of that stuff. And so that's what the CRC is. And so we do a hot meal on Saturdays every single week. We do 50 hot meals with survival gear, with drinks, with hot coffee, with fresh fruit as often as we can get it. We do 2 other service days of general outreach where we go directly to camps and set up aid stations, where we have street medics and trained nurses come and try to give people triage and try to get them to the hospital and give them treatment for their flesh wounds and things like that, prevent infections. We have, let's see what else. Many programs. We have run so many programs. It's hard for me to go through them all, but we have about 10 plus programs that we run right now, including a needle exchange program and others. And morale support. And my chairwoman's yelling at me right now, different things that we do, but the list can go on and on. We do a lot of things. We're continually developing new projects. Right now, I'm developing a juice lodge. Oh, we do a soap and hand sanitizer. We have a in-house no brand called People's Basics. And soap and sanitizer companies give us sanitizer and soap, and we package that soap without brands, just simple basic soap and sanitizer, and give that to people just straight up. And we put that out every week. But I'm right now developing a juice manufacturing, like to replace Capri Suns, because our folks love fruit juice. I love fruit juice. Who doesn't love fruit juice?
Who doesn't love fruit juice?
Yeah. So one of the programs we're developing right now is a 50 servings a day of homemade like Capri Sun replacer. It's cheaper and better quality, and made by our community members. So what we're always trying to do is get away from this parasitic society. We're constantly, through mutual aid, trying to build these lasting alternatives, these replacement services to the state.
So how do you, I mean, and you don't have to go into like the full detail because there's a lot going on here, but like, what are some of the, ins and outs of how you make that happen on a daily basis? Like where do you get the food from typically? How do you, orchestrate that? How do you choose locations?
That's something that y'all have to go through. I can't answer. That's not a question that I can helpfully answer for you, honestly. Okay. It very much depends on where you live and the work that you do, and who you're doing it for. If you're serving students, if you're a student organizing around student needs, I have no way to help you with that because I don't do that. It's all very particular. We focus specifically on houseless people mostly. And if you're doing tenant organizing is completely different than houseless organizing. And so I can't answer that question, but there is a question I can answer. I can tell you how to think about this work.
Okay.
Whether or not I can tell you how to specifically do the work in your neighborhood, I can tell you how to begin to think about this work in a way that will help you not step on your neighbor's toes and will help you serve your community in a way that's actually helpful and not a conquering sort of way. If you're interested in that, I can answer that question, but
Yeah, please.
I can't, nothing that I say about my formation is going to help you in your formation where you're at. So that's my point. But
I understand.
how to think about the work is you have to go in as a student. So we didn't go into houseless camps and start telling them what to do and what was good for them. We didn't go in and say, here's what you need, here's what we're giving you. We went in humbly as students. I've been houseless before. I'm married and we've been houseless together before. That doesn't, but we're not houseless now. And so the priority is, regardless of your personal experience, you go in as a first time learner always to a new community, and you go in and you learn. And we just spent years just humbly walking in and seeing people on the street before we had any programs, before we did anything organized wise. It was just me and my wife. We had socks or sandwiches or cigarettes. We were on our way to our 12-hour shift at work or on our way home or on the weekends. And we'd see people in our neighborhood and we'd say, hey, you need a pair of socks. Hey, you need or they'd ask us, hey, you got a cigarette? And we'd say, yeah, sure, I've got a cigarette. Hey, do you happen to need a pair of socks? Do you happen to need a peanut butter sandwich or something like that? And we just did that forever and ever and ever for what seemed like forever, years, honestly, years, before we were ever organized enough, before anybody ever trusted us, before they ever gave us a mandate to do anything. We just existed alongside them humbly for months and months on end and just gave what we could and had these very crucial dialogues every day and started to learn their themes and their points of view and learn their history and learn their ideas about the world and their hopes for what they hope to accomplish and how they want to move forward in the world and how they feel about things. And by engaging in that dialogue, our chairwoman leads this process in the streets. This is not what I do. This is what a whole other branch of our work does. I'm a logistics guy and a communications guy. They do the mass work and the mutual aid, but they go down there and they just spend time with people as human beings, just sitting with them and working with them at whatever it is, cleaning up their camp, whatever it is they need help with. They just go down there and do it. They don't try to like push anything on anybody. We never went down there as a group at first. We just went down there as individuals and just showed that we gave a shit.
Yeah, I mean, isn't
And
that
so,
isn't that kind of how human history naturally evolved in the first place? Like didn't at some point in
but
time, long
that's,
before you and I were alive, that we came down from the trees and decided, hey, we're better off together than alone. What do we need? Let's figure
and
this
at,
out.
and at some point, some pigs decided that that wasn't a good way to live for them. That living off the commons together in peace was not good for them. So they closed the commons and pushed us all into the cities and made manufacturing and forced us into factories and made us proletarians. They
Mhm.
isolated us and atomized us and took us away from our collective power on purpose. And we see unions are a collective proletarian response to this enclosure and this proletization of us, this atomization of us, this specialization of us, this putting us on a factory floor where we just hammer one piece into a thing, or we just do one piece of a larger puzzle of a service organization. They take us away from the solidarity and the shared dignity that gives us power. And we have to unlearn that. We have to go back to basics. We have to
Yeah.
literally go through a social struggle collectively and learn to live together again before we can do anything meaningful as a collective. We have to learn not to sexually assault each other. We have to learn to feed each other unconditionally. We have to learn to forgive and fight alongside each other. We have to learn to build a real sense of healing, and then we can move on to justice. And these things are not negotiable.
Yeah. I
These
mean,
things are
well,
not.
sure. I mean, they take you away from your labor too when you
No, they
really break
don't.
it down. I think
No.
they do because that you're not seeing you don't see the benefits of your labor. The people exploiting you do.
Oh yeah, no, I see what you're saying. Yes, I agree with you. I misheard what you said. I misunderstood what you said. Yes, you're absolutely right. Yeah, it becomes alienated labor. It's not labor that you feel personally compelled to do because you're invested in the process. It's labor that you're compelled to do because you need something else badly. Your
Hmm.
family needs medication. You need a place to live. You just want to sleep not in the rain, and they've taken this ability for us to simply exist without their coercive force. And part of mutual aid is getting us off the floor. It gets people off the floor, gets their belly full and their bones healed and their body strong so that they can make good decisions about their lives.
Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Get your news on with Ron. Don't you wanna know what's going on? We're getting our news on today. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can tweet me an article at Ron Placone. We'll go through it together and